15-second intro, so we're on the cusp of a large update. Perk packs for custom characters, artists and other interested persons, get those custom characters ready. Meanwhile, my opinions are focused on playing with Harbinger difficulty. Please keep that in mind as I go through this review. Without further ado, let's get into it. Until we know for certain if fresh meat is RNG and how RNG it is, I won't try to speculate too much on fresh meat. If the effect ends up following what was suggested in the community, it'll be as good as RNG can be. If the mysterious meat effect was changed to a static effect, we'll see. Nonetheless, if it causes a random curse, the value of the mysterious meat immediately tanks. We're assuming that most runs on Harbinger make it past the first two mysteries as well. And unless the mystery meat somehow deals with Doom as well, there's still the threat of Yagathag or Knight Errant runs. Top that off with no other encounter advantages, and you'll have to rely on RNG being at least average to get the full use of this perk mystery-wise. But I guess that's why Sharpening Stone is paired with it in this Skilled Butcher perk pack. There are sharp weapons in every stat category available, even if some of them are conditional. Generally, for those who like doing prep attack, and like going for 2-turn kills, you'll find some use out of this. For strength weapon users, this damage pairs well with bracing. For players who like dexterity, you get multiple attacks with extra damage, resulting in a possible +3 or +4 damage overall in a turn. And Knowledge has the Scalpel, the Ritual Dagger, and the Bone Saw as a heavy alternative. Tack a Thotu onto Sharpening Stone and you've got 2-turn kills in the bag. Or at least enough damage to lower your own damage taken overall. Of course, not all strength users will be using or have access to sharp weapons, and for dexterity, if you don't strategize with braces a lot, you might need to take some non-guaranteed attack risks, which can be deadly on Harbinger. Yes, there is a perception sharp weapon, but it's very situational to get, and then the sharp knowledge weapons can have accuracy problems in some encounters. Maybe the effects of the mysterious meat will cover some of the damage taken as a result of these unfortunate moments. If so, the Skilled Butcher perk pack is certainly okay. As we continue with newer perk effects and how they'll be implemented, we move on to the Hounded Artist perk pack. If we assume it'll be similar to Mimi's Fast Learner perk, Morbid Inspiration's use is also a nice bonus to normal gameplay. If it also procs on any reason loss, even better. Yeah, it's not the highest bonus, likely less than the average deduction bonus with Koji, which would be less than about 40 to 60 experience in the entire run. But it can't be more than 9 experience per hit, because then you have memory extract loops and other weird shenanigans. Maybe it's too high for some people, but even less than that is okay. Do note that since custom characters start with this perk, you can farm a bit of experience early if you proc library notes at the start of the run. Or maybe you have Ath, or maybe you have spell strats, or even encounter farming. These things can equal 1 or even 2 investigations worth of experience if you really go hard on library note usage or something like that. That said, yes, some players might not look kindly on the amount of experience you get per proc to losing reason. If the value is 2 to 5 experience, the RNG just makes it less reliable in a Harbinger run where you desperately need the level. Keep that point in mind as we move forward with perks that give a bonus experience when something occurs. We also need to consider any strats that can immediately be used at the start of the game as well, since these perks will be given to a custom character at the start of a run. If that's not correct, let me know. I guess that's partly why this perk pack's value increases with Haunting Dreams, which helps ease the reason loss as you complete mysteries. Since you have this perk at the start, you get the full value since you know you'll have this effect for all 5 mysteries. Even without its synergy with Morbid Inspiration, the reason recovery is much appreciated after a rough mystery number 3 or 4. For those working with spells, even more so since most spells require reason to use anyway. Of course, for those who aren't hurting for reason, or not the type to use these strats at all, Haunting Dreams is less useful. It's perfectly possible to get a run with lots of forest stamina damage from plants, or you end up getting a badly bleeding and cut artery, or you need to choose between ending a Stamina Mermaid's damage or a 7% Doom Knight Errant. This is common for any reason recovery effects, and Haunting Dreams is one of them. The fact that it happens after mysteries also means that dying to reason during a mystery means less than something like First Aid, which heals you after an encounter. After mystery effects are nice, as long as you can complete the mystery. Moving on to Obsessive Shopper, we have the Doom Decreasing Shopping Perk Pack. Quick Shopper is the direct answer to those worried or wanting some kind of reliable Doom decrease while getting their much wanted items. Whether you want to work with a certain strat, you need that can of acid for ending A, or if this also procs on vending machines, then you'll get to save on much needed Doom while getting something you want or need. In case people forgot or don't know, Lighthouse Rests are 2% Doom increase for +1 stamina and +1 reason. So while you do lose funds on top of the 2% effective doom increase, or 1% if you buy something from the hospital pharmacy at base, you won't need funds in the lighthouse. By that I mean anything you'll get is likely worth the total resource cost. Compare that to 3% or 4% doom increase just for visiting shops without this perk, and you'll find you might only make 2 or 3 visits tops. Although, let's pull back for a moment. I said a lot of good, but there are also some places to criticize. If you don't find anything good due to shop RNG, you don't get to lower doom because, well, you didn't buy anything. If we assume the effect details are correct. On top of that, yes, you do need to find the funds needed to visit and buy things from shops a few times or more. And 2 stacks of panic or a branded curse at the start of the run to grab tree funds kind of negates quick shopper if your RNG rolls are bad. If a pickpocket takes your funds in the middle of a forest, that kind of ruins a future shop visit as well. I suppose it's good that this perk pack also comes with Big Spender then. It's not Irizumi, but to be honest, it would be a bit much to pair Quick Shopper with a direct 1 fund decrease to everything in shops. In return, you have RNG to thank or blame when you get 1 fund back to avoid the out of funds event, which is all too eager to undo the benefits Quick Shopper brings. And if not, you can still see Big Spender's bad RNG as a good thing. Out of funds comes out, you get 2 funds, you sell something for at least 1 fund, then you get back in the shop with those 3 funds. That way you quote-unquote undo what out of funds did to you that started that whole chain. It becomes a weird tug of war between your funds and the Rising Doom, one that gets easier if you start with the 7th cursed funds as well. Of course, this all falls apart if you lose that tug of war, or you don't run shop strats at all. If your funds are also low throughout the run, that's also bad. Hear me out. You grab 6 funds from the tree, you get +1 fund from the figurine, +1 fund from selling library notes, maybe even 1 more fund from selling the painkillers at the doctor's office. You hit 6% doom and deck yourself out with 2 funds proccing at the end of all this shopping from Big Spender. Then you get pickpocketed, out of funds procs, you get pickpocketed again after that because you can't get more funds as you go through the run. You don't have to deal with this headache if you weren't doing a strat like this. But you do have a weapon, maybe a slot C item, maybe an empty bottle to gamble on Hone Bat surviving, maybe a late game cigarettes for Akamanto. This is the back and forth strategy you have with the game when you're running a shopping strat. At least you can say you prepared. If you were to ask, why did Panstaz add the Tarot Reader perk pack? I would say at this moment, because it's for quality of life for less experienced players while providing some general benefit. And maybe there's a plan to make events more in-depth. Hear me out, veteran players, let's start. Premonition. If we get events either now or in the future that have the possibility of testing one of 2 or more stats, then this will be useful. Basically, an event upon investigation provides a choice such as, say, check out the hole. Now, normally in our current update, it might be a perception check. Panstaz puts in the success and failure result based on perception, but maybe, either in this coming update or a future one, Panstaz wants to add the ability to say, this time, it's the same event, but it's a dexterity check. You need to react fast enough to the fact that the hole is a giant worm instead, I don't know. You succeed, you get XP, you fail, you take stamina damage, maybe an injury, yada yada yada. Or maybe it's a strength check instead, even though it's the same event. This time you nearly fall in, but succeeding makes you confident and heal stamina as you climb back up, or you fail and fall in an otherworldly location. I know this is a pretty big speculation, but I think this warrants it because the argument to why this perk exists will be, well, just remember all the events! The average player doesn't remember every single event. If you're me and you forget events, even more so. Listen, if nothing else, it is the nice beginner perk effect for newer or less experienced players. Otherwise, yes, if you have knowledge of events, this perk isn't as useful. If Panstaz never planned to make this perk valuable in-game and only in meta play, it's not wrong to question this perk's viability. I'm just saying, and listen here mod content creators, I originally planned to make custom events mimicking the base game events that had different stat checks. This means you can literally copy-paste a current custom event and change the flavor text, stat checks, and rewards. Panstaz can too. Just putting that out there. Anyway, moving on. Now we have the more general perk Stars Are Right. Short fun fact, there are at least 20 luck checks in version 9.17H1, so just looking at trying to pass luck checks, this perk will likely see use. So moving forward, I wouldn't test the waters by saying that luck is a useless stat. Me. As of present and the next update though, it will help when those hospital elevator doors open. That said, if you don't run into luck checks often, or your run involves locations that will mean you won't get a chance to use this perk, it's not as great. And since there are a few ways to raise luck, if this only affects event skill checks, then its other uses aren't covered by this perk anyway. If you didn't know, luck influences several other hidden factors in-game. Pansta has confirmed this to the community in the past. On a short tangent, this is a good moment where obscuring something makes sense. At the same time, you could fire back that obscuring this is pointless because that's just more busy work to prove things we don't know about luck, which can be infuriating when someone asks, is luck good? And all someone can say is, I don't know. Anywho, just food for thought. Inner strength is pretty self-explanatory, but for those who might not see its use, allow me to present you with Harbinger difficulty reasons. So an extra +2 reason and stamina is pretty much 15% survivability flat out for stamina and reason. This also allows you to worry less about certain events or encounters. Another +8 damage to Akamanto while bracing, players who already equip the Demon Mask immediately without this perk pack, getting a free damage increase ritual spellcast in, and Yashiro mains will understand how useful this can be. It's an extra shielding of HP, more valuable as difficulties lower max stamina and reason. If custom characters want general survivability and be solid, they'll probably have this perk pack as one of their too. That said, yes, it's unlikely you'll ever be topped off, and it really doesn't provide any other benefits than what I stated. A lot of benefits we could talk about gained are indirect and uncertain. If you roll another spell with library notes and get nothing good, you've just lost that 2 reason. If you can't defeat Sailor's Timeline B with the extra stamina and reason, you lose the run. And it's less effective than an empty bottle on the average run. But the Inner Strength perk pack has no direct downsides and gives you some breathing room to work with at least. Pushing yourself. Let's get this out of the way. You should be able to tell how better or worse Survival Instinct is if it activates over Ill-Fated or vice versa. Regardless, on its own, Survival Instinct has its survivability. After all, if you're at 2 reason or 2 stamina or below, chances are you're gonna die to the next investigation event, so it's nice to know that events shouldn't usually kill you because you'll be passing every check. That said, strategy-wise, you could also purposely push yourself low, which is more for players who like staying low to use the desperate struggle action in encounters. For everyone else, you get to use this perk as it comes, especially if your max reason decreases during the run. This is especially run-saving when you're stuck in the forest and dying because you got snoo-snooed for -3 all damage, or -4 all damage, you get my point. Or maybe you're close to the end of a mystery and you make a tactical trade of reason for stamina or doom. Maybe you get a safe reason monument use on the last investigation of a mystery so you can decrease your doom as well. It's really good for these kinds of emergencies. Now, complaining that it has no stamina recovery instead, or that stamina-heavy runs are a downside, aren't the fairest critique. But if it's only under 3 reason and not at 3 reason, because that's what the perk effect says, that's dangerous to some players. What's more harmful to Survival Instinct is that, especially on Harbinger, some players don't like taking damage at all, which means their reason might be 3 or above for over half of the run, which means they don't benefit from the perk. You might even get pushed down under 3 reason by an event when you needed to pass that same skill check. Then there's dying to an encounter trying to play with under 3 reason, and that's assuming that the perk overrides the ill-fated backstory. Do note that there are some events where if you succeed, you will also be losing stamina or reason or doom will increase, but you get something like a spell or an item or something, so that's another smaller negative downside to it. So, winging it. While yes, you are failing more checks, the real question is what the experience from winging it will get you. Losing an extra 2 stamina and 2 reason to get the perk Outdoorsman may likely be less effective than Doom increasing by 8% while getting Fast Swimmer with the extra XP. Maybe you quote-unquote pass enough skill checks to use Memory Extract once and heal a much-needed 2 reason. Also, winging its value increases on quote-unquote again, past event skill checks that have no risk. What I mean by that is there are a few examples of perks and or effects that activate in odd conditions where there's no skill check, so to say, so that's why I say that. If this is no longer true in the next update, that still doesn't change the XP that you might get. Of course, this is assuming it's a good amount of experience. If it's 5 experience, well, that's okay in my opinion, but it's not up to snuff with how some events can absolutely wreck you. Random injuries, random curses, and on Harbinger, extra damage from high threat levels. Oh, on top of the extra modifier from threat levels in most locations. That's probably why it's paired with the survival instinct, which, to be fair, if you know events well enough, you can force yourself under 3 reason, so maybe 5 experience isn't so bad, but we loop back to the argument about surviving while under 3 reason, so yeah. Magic Caster, the Kyrie set. This pack has perks that a custom character like Akko will probably like from the very start of a run, just like Deduction or Daddy's Girl. So, Ghost Connection, on the other hand, is the spell RNG, but it reliably is +1 reason after every mystery if you really don't like spells. And if you get a usable spell, on average, it's okay, because, you know, +2 stamina recovery on a spell, or +1 damage for 4 reason for the entire run before a home bath, or maybe it's an insta-kill spell where you spend 7 doom to get rid of the mad janitor for an insta-kill. So while not all players want to RNG with spells, Ghost Connection does give you spells that you might as well hold on to and use, or forget them if you need to. But yes, a majority of spells don't have an obvious use. The rest of the spells that aren't obviously lawful good require you to cough up 2 to 4 reason as a cost on Harbinger difficulty, which is not so great. If Ath is active, that's Doom instead, which could be a good thing, until you're on Knight Errant, or you're on a run with all 7+ investigation mysteries, Forest Wandering, and or Bulletin with a max threat level village location, you get what I mean. Then yes, you could be sitting in bad runs with a spell or 2 where you can only heal 2 reason while a lumpy officer bops you to the floor. At the very least with Arcane Grasp, you'll have enough slots to hold all the spells you'll get from Ghost Connection. Though that's unlikely, the point is that this takes care of times where events can give you spells, or maybe you go to the library to learn spells, or you listen to enemies and encounters to learn spells. If you draw 8 to 10 spells for about 6 to 8% doom with all of this going on, you can hold those instant kill spells or cauterizes for later, and you don't have to worry about forgetting them immediately and tossing them out before you want to use them. For those who don't like spells though, +2 spell slots means nothing. More so since it's not likely on your average run to be holding 5 to 6 spells at all. And if your spell RNG is bad, then you're just working with an empty list of spells regardless. You heal reason, and maybe you trade 2 reason for 1 stamina in an encounter, and you still get killed by Harbinger Miku on Katak. There are more examples of situations that make you wonder why you relied on spells sometimes. Don't get me wrong, when spells come at a good time, and they're useful, they're amazing. And for some, that might be balanced enough so that Harbinger isn't a spell-based meta. And next, here with the Lone Wolf perk pack, we have great parts of Haru and Yashiro for custom characters. For newer players, the reason why On Your Own is generally preferred is because allies aren't normally something players are going to look forward to in a run. While true, allies are normally not a detriment to you, and in fact can change your run for the better, compared to On Your Own, most allies lose out. And for even fewer players, unless they have the Shining Star Kana in the playthrough, to them, there are no alternatives. And even if you pick up Kana, the damage mitigation plus bracing can warrant losing the effects of On Your Own, which makes it good anyway. In that situation, you can consider On Your Own to be more a +1 to all stats until you get Kana, which is damage mitigation. Combine either of these two with a late run nicotine rush and enemies will get 2 or 3 shot while you're saving so much on resources. If you do take other allies however while you have On Your Own, that's a possible attack boost you lose out on, or a prepare attack action. And mathematically it is a lower chance of passing stat checks. Really, these are the 2 bad things that can ruin runs, especially on Harbinger where enemies hit harder and events fail more often. So, at least you can get extra damage from Hard Knock along with the time action decrease from using cigarettes. Cigarette usage, for those who don't know, is a great boon to encounters, effectively giving you extra attacks per turn, guaranteeing attacks, or allowing you to brace and deal damage you wouldn't normally be able to perform or rely on. Add the extra damage on, and some enemies that get scaled on later mysteries will die in a timely manner, even on Harbinger. Of course, these good points flip to bad if you don't like cigarette strats or fall under the nicotine withdrawal debuff. I admit cigarette usage is a rare strat to see, which is also likely to be overlooked by newer players. The fact that the vending machines were added and directly buffed Haru is proof of that. Even then, you need to cough up 4 funds if you don't want to visit other stores for 4% doom. So it's a choice you need to know when to make, if you even want to make it, if you're not late in your run. Because optimally, you want to end the run before you run out of cigarettes. The nicotine withdrawal time increase is that bad in encounters. Forget about surviving Akamanto if you have nicotine withdrawal on you with an average setup. the Escape Artist Perk Pack. Starting on running shoes, we move on to escape strategies or options to escape certain encounters. In its basic form, if an encounter is doing more stamina or reason or doom damage than it takes to run away, you might consider running. Add on if the encounter dropped any items on defeat, or the experience and indirectly the level up you might lose out on, and that's the meat of the issue. With this in mind, doom increasing by 3 rather than 5 is a pretty good trade-off for heavy damage fights or unfortunate Miku encounters. To keep it simple, running away for 3% doom increase only, or at least 6 HP loss when you're trying to take the encounter between stamina and reason. On the negative side, yes, Kathak shuts this down. And on boss-intensive runs, you might wish you had an offensive perk. Some players also just like to try and defeat every enemy, even on Harbinger, or maybe you get a good setup early or mid-run. So as we move on to stealth, maybe the 10 experience will make some players change their minds. So together with running shoes, with stealth, you investigate, run from an encounter, and doom increases by 3% plus the investigation doom increase while getting 10 experience. Like earlier, if that's less costly than, say, 6 stamina damage, then yeah, or avoiding a -3 all damage enemy. Obviously, you can still bash enemies in a katana run, but the availability of this strategy gives you more flexibility. If you have high doom, you don't use it. If you're dying to stamina and or reason but have low doom, you can choose to run and live for a while longer. Great option, right? And if the 10 experience allows you to level up, even better. Again though, the same negatives apply. For stealth specifically, you may not have enough experience to level up anyway. And then, Kathak really shuts this perk down. As of update 9.17H1, even Pocket Knife doesn't award 10 experience when you have stealth. I assume this is because the game needs to read the escape action, which is locked under Kathak, instead of seeing the result of an escaped encounter. But that's an assumption. We'll see when the update comes out. Close Quarters, the Moriko and the Other Side of Haru pack. To put deft handling in perspective, Fast Swimmer decreases offensive action speed by 15%, and players already consider it a god tier perk. So while deft handling only affects melee attacks with a specific weapon type, well, there are a few ways to find a firearm to use, and one, the pistol, is more reliable depending on the grind and RNG in a run. At the same time, sure, the pistol's fire damage isn't the best, and the rifles are kind of conditional to get. On top of that, you kinda still want bullets even though you're doing melee attacks, because the melee attacks aren't usually great unless you're already built for them. Even with 7th Curse, you can't reliably buy a rifle. Again, you just have to pick up a rifle from the cult member or from the locker and scissors. To even get the key, you need arms in a run, and you need it to not be timeline B, unless I'm wrong. Correct me if I am. And since we're working with perception, it depends on the custom character at this point. And kind of updated, since it doesn't look like custom characters can start with an item, then that means no shotgun or rifle or revolver to start with, so you do need to find a firearm specifically. Then there's CQC training. Even in a bad case where we grind, say, for 8% doom to get the police revolver, we benefit from the +1 damage. Literally, the revolver becomes a steak knife. There are differences, but it's not bad if you happen to run perception on a custom character. Of course, just like deft handling, if you use any other weapon, you get nothing from this pack as a whole. This includes a lot of free weapons here and there, but at least there aren't any penalties, I guess. Mafia member, on the other hand, is a bit more situational. We can talk about Yakuza card in Irizumian 1. The general use is that you get cheaper items if you visit any shops at all, which can happen if you're going to be weaponless at the start of a run. Which, barring a few exceptions, you really don't want to be weaponless on Harbinger. If you're a frequent shopper though, this pack is magnificent. Having an effective 3 to 4 funds more after buying a few items means you might have another item capable of saving your run. If you like running Compass, or Map, or Holy Candle, you'll likely get good mileage out of them buying them at the beginning of a playthrough. Passively, you also lower the RNG of items in shops, so you don't have to reroll and increase Doom even more, which separates this from the Obsessive Shopper perk pack. Of course, the bad news is that you need to spend Doom shopping. If you're working with the run with a low ending A possibility with Knight Errant and or Yogathag, shopping is a bigger risk. You could use Monument, but you are trading something to lower Doom at that point. This means that you must know what you're buying in shops and why if you're risking that Doom increase at all. Some items and strats I can see players shopping for regardless, but still. I think the military background perk pack might be a bit of a mishmash for names for the lore, but one half of the effects are still solid. That is to say, the discipline perk. Disclaimer, if your RNG is so bad you don't pass any skill checks, it likely didn't matter what perks you had. So, if we look at the average case, you are receiving less stamina damage. This is on top of Harbinger's higher threat level overall, so it helps to get more good with your past checks. Ill-Fated does nuke Discipline pretty hard though, and for players that want more, 1 stamina isn't much when you're getting throttled by those events, or by enemy encounters. If you can't pass skill checks because you have injuries, curses, or you're just dead, you can't benefit from 1 stamina. But if you want to argue against that, Ammo Stash is technically still offensive while being situational, as you obviously need a gun to shoot those bullets. Bullets are definitely run savers if your melee damage tanks for whatever reason, even if the revolver is the lowest fire damage of the current firearms. So while there's no obvious synergy between this and Discipline, there's at least no negative to having Ammo Stash. Top this with Timeline A arms into Scissors getting the rifle, and that Scissor Lady becomes Canis the Lunar Cat in present form. On the negatives though, if you're on Timeline B, it gets a bit harder to get any rifle at all. If you're not on Colt, that's less options. While the revolver is nice, the 9 damage is a bit low when Akamanto's staring at the end of the barrel. Extra note, you can't double the damage from a fire weapon action with the Desperate Struggle action. In emergency situations, you're usually looking for a one-shot turn, or building action speed so you can fire the revolver twice at 100% accuracy. So that's things to watch out for Ammo Stash. The Sports Star Perk Pack. Lore aside, this perk pack is the go-to if you want to make a character who's solid at base gameplay wise. For less experienced players, Fast Swimmer gives you much more flexibility in combat. There's a reason why this perk is lorded over in the community. Do you want to guarantee an attack while bracing? Do you want to go all in on attacks? Or do you want 2 attacks at 100% accuracy? The number of runs and strats that this perk alone can support is insane. Of course, the downside is that it does nothing for anything outside of combat if we're looking at the whole picture. If you can't get a great weapon for your run and your kick game is garbage, if you get killed by events from Ill-Fated, if Doom rises higher because of Yogatag, it doesn't matter how fast you can swing that katana when you run into the Out of Funds event and then events just obliterate you after that. On top of this, on Harbinger, you'll still be in pain unless you get something else on top of Fast Swimmer. Nicotine Rush, a high stat build with the respective weapon, adrenaline, something to help with hard encounters. Fine. Fast Swimmer is a great perk with no real downsides, but if I had to remind players of possible points of weakness, there you go. I suppose that's why Daddy's Girl helps out with these exact weaknesses, assuming stamina is lost as a result. Maybe you finished fighting the mad janitor. Maybe you fell in a hole and lost stamina. Maybe you misclicked and got cut and are now badly bleeding. If you make it out of the mystery alive, you recover 2 stamina, which is quite the piece of your max stamina on Harbinger, especially if your max stamina is also lowered for any reason during the run. There aren't really any serious negatives for Sports Star, but do keep in mind you don't have much avoidance for reason loss or doom increases. Yes, you can kill Tatoru faster. Yes, you can trade stamina for reason with Yasugi-san, but if you can't grab a good weapon or you receive branded after getting 2 funds at the start of the run from the tree, you could be in a bit of trouble. You will have an easier time in encounters though, overall. Witch's Child. Like other perk packs, I think this one is a half and half as well. Half great, half situational. Second Sight helps with one annoying enemy type that even Panstaz wants to fix the mechanic of. The other enemy type is something almost every boss in World of Horror currently is. Yeah, there's Mad Janitor, but we're talking bosses that you're usually forced into fighting. Because of how tanky the current Eldritch bosses can be or are on Harbinger, this means that the damage increase will save you 1 or 2 turns, which is quite a lot when Akamanto is strangling you in the other world. On the other hand, if we start receiving bosses that are not either of these types, either in base game or mods, then yeah, Second Sight is less useful. So keep an eye out on the mysteries in your run and gauge when or where you might face certain enemies. This is game knowledge, but if you're working with custom characters, you might be a player who knows a few things about the game. Occult Signs, as of this moment, sees situational use, and it'll also depend on how the game develops. There are a few spells that are always used when you acquire them, and a few more that are likely to be used in a run once or several times. Even more situationally, there are several useful loops in game that give you something for losing or risking a resource. This means that a little bit of XP on top of those spells' uses may push you to another level up, which can save your run or help your run late game. This said, I don't think this is for less experienced players or players who dislike spells in World of Horror. If you get a spell and you know how to use it, there's no reason not to use it. It's purposely going out of your way to learn spells, especially in events that grant you spells, that gets to some players. There are currently more than a handful of events that allow you to take a stat check to learn a spell, but these events also allow you to leave and take a smaller penalty. It's moments like these that some people just take the L and leave because they don't want to RNG for a good spell. I personally don't think this little thinking game needs to change or that we need more OP spells. This is more for those considering to use this perk pack or those using a character with this perk pack in a run. I know that Occult Science is about experience bonus, but the fact that it relies on spell usage means we need to talk about strats that use spells. We could go on a whole video reviewing this. I wanted to put this out there for you to think about. Me Time, on the other hand, is a nice side play for those who hate spells or receive spells that won't be used. Self-therapy should be mostly self-explanatory. On Harbinger, the extra point gain can be invaluable. This also technically reduces the cost of some spells, as you can choose to forget some spells after using them. Otherwise, it's just straight up +2 reason recovery, especially on Ath, who gives you a spell at run start. If you get no spells during a run, on the other hand, yeah, that sucks. And it doesn't do anything for stamina or doom directly, unless you can make a trade somewhere else. At least there's no downside. The same thing can be said for Hot Bath. Hot Bath is good for reliable resters and emergency heals. Or maybe you just want to top yourself off before a boss fight on Harbinger. Players who don't want to hope for stamina and or reason healing otherwise can make use of the doom per stamina and reason efficiency. Most of the time, you can use rests early before any negative effects in the run can influence them. And I didn't mention this earlier for the other perks that this applies to, but Hot Bath also has an event that uses it, so there's another plus. At the same time, if you have home disabled for any reason, if Goizo is your active old god, or if you get a broken nose, these can negate or outright ruin your home rests, especially when they stack. On top of these things, if your doom gain looks pretty high for the run, resting can be an uncertain gamble during your, say, Thirst Mystery on 60% doom while you still have footage and bulletin to investigate. Don't get me wrong, the option to rest and negate Goizo alone with Hot Bath is great if we're looking at doom efficiency, but it does work both ways. Anxious Athlete is another solid perk pack pick with no heavy downsides in terms of general strategy. While it still is on the half good, half situational department, the extra damage from core strength weighs much more on the good than fast hands on the situational. So let's start with core strength. It's a great alternative to fast swimmer or adrenaline. It's not time action, yes. What it is an extra point of damage which covers what happens when you're fast enough to brace an attack anyway at 100% accuracy. This includes the kick action, which might be what you have to use with slower actions or certain combinations of injuries or curses. For those that like prep attack, this is guaranteed 2-turn kills on enemies even on 4th or 5th mysteries. But it's not time action, and bracing is important. So an extra point of damage, yay, but then you're too slow and you have to get snoo-snooed by -3 all damage. This will normally happen when you're using a weapon not good for your stats or vice versa, as opposed to general time action decreases, which don't care as much about what weapon or stats you have. That's how you can look at it anyway. And that's maybe why Fast Hands comes with this. While you might be re-equipping weapons outside of encounters anyway, the real use of this is the situational occurrence where you have a heavy and a light weapon for the damage to speed trade-off. Or if you have your melee weapon, then you have a rifle with bullets. Fine, it's still situational, but you have options with this perk working with core strength. It doesn't hurt to have it. Amateur Detective. Yes, the Koji special. There is an indirect synergy, and some of it's situational, but this is okay too. Let me tell you why. For those who don't know, deduction gives an extra 20 experience after completing a mystery, from the normal 30 to 50 overall. That's a guaranteed extra level up or close to a level up if this was Yashiro, but it's pretty much a free level up for the custom character who has this perk pack. The reason why is that you start with deduction. Since Koji isn't actually a detective, getting deduction later was always RNG. Now, there's no more RNG, just experience and a lot of levels. Levels means perks, stats, and or recovery for the custom character to use. Leveling up also makes your attacks more accurate, but technically combat perk effects will also indirectly help you level up as well. If your level ups present perks not fitting your strategy, at best, then at least you can still take stats or healing. And yes, deduction's not a combat perk for those who want to survive Akamanto, or Miku, or whatever else awaits us in the future. Okay, fine, maybe it doesn't have the best rewards like RNGing an OP spell or an OP ally. Like the speed up perks, deduction is the non-combat safe perk. Reporter's Bag is also a non-combat safe perk. Do you need to hold more items that have effects while in inventory? Do you want more recovery on hand during an encounter? Do you have a throw strat viable for your run? Or maybe a combination of these three or more? This perk's effect will help. This next one's a theoretical, but in terms of synergy with deduction, though it's not likely, if you get a perk like My Weird Collection, you might pick up more items you'd want to hold. To be fair though, holding extra items to throw for damage or an extra item of healing can be a lifesaver. However, you can say that it's not common to fill out your inventory, and you'll have all you need in 4 slots, which is fair. You can equip a lot of items, any else you'd replace you wouldn't need, and there are a lot of items that must stay in inventory to activate. So to some players, Reporter's Bag is a dead perk with no use. But if you do run into any inactive encounters to improvise endlessly, it's an extra item to have to throw or discard. Petty Thief. If I didn't make a whole video about one of these perks, then just know, we're going to assume Pickpocket works as intended. That said, this perk pack appeals to people who love getting items and using funds, even if it's not shopping. Since there are items that aren't guaranteed after defeating an enemy, Pickpocket should see some use, especially if we get more enemies that can drop items. If the chance doesn't rise to 100%, and by the diction of the perk it shouldn't, I mean, I guess you can interpret it that way, but it's still mathematically better to have it than nothing at all. If the item drop rate does become 100%, then good. It does depend on what item's being picked up, but we'll see when the next update comes out. Other than that, yes, the perk is currently not working in version 9.17 H1. So this does become one of the perks that we have to wait for to see how good it might be. Still, it doesn't directly help you survive, and if you run from battle or are using an escape strat, Pickpocket has less use. Looting, on the other hand, is that one fun perk after encounters. It's highly unlikely, if even possible, to go a whole run without running into an encounter. And with the addition of the vending machine sublocation, you can choose to get a pack of cigarettes near the end of the run after 4 encounters. Or maybe buy a weapon for Akamanto, or maybe get healing, or treat injuries in the doctor's office while getting the painkiller item, or use those funds in the monument if it asks for funds. Of course, if you don't shop often or use funds at all, even provide an offering for ghost type enemies, then the looting perk and this perk pack isn't for you. Plus, maybe you don't want to rely on the RNG of Pickpocket if it's not 100% and you have a solid beginning strat or start of a run already, so the items and funds are worth less to you in that situation. That's when this perk pack and any associated custom character wouldn't do as much for you. On the other side of good and great perks, the Serial Killer perk pack covers what the other offensive perk packs don't in a way. Doomed Already works with bad RNG and the ill-fated backstory, providing recovery or negation of reason lost during events. Of course, continuing to fail checks with heavy penalties will kill you, but that's true for most other perks as well. Still, if bad things like receiving stat-reducing injuries and curses happen, you don't have to worry as much about stat checks, or forced stat checks as well. Seen another way, there's less risk if you know you'll be +1 reason on a failed roll. This is seen in a positive light since there are events with stat checks that do nothing bad to you when you fail. Granted, if you're on a stamina loss intense run, or Doom is the biggest threat in the playthrough, then more reason is usually not going to help you. If you're not the type to take risks or you happen to run into less skill checks, then you'll also benefit less from this perk as well. You might not always be looking to risk skill checks if you're dying, or maybe you like taking the small penalty just to leave most events 100%. In any case, event knowledge and what kind of events will appear in your run are a large factor of Doomed Already's efficiency. At least you have a combat perk in Anatomy class. There are a fair amount of human encounters, including those who interfere in the Hunted by the Cult backstory. And most human encounters in general are within 2-turn brace kill range with this perk and an average damage weapon. Combine this with the fact that there's a boss you can use this on, and this perk is at least right under Second Sight's Eldritch damage boost. With an Athotube damage boost and proper bracing, you get even more mileage just like any other damage perk. That said, yeah, you might not be prepared to fight the human boss on Harbinger difficulty every time. And with mystery scaling, some human encounters require you to be more than a bit prepared. And obviously, if you fight non-human enemies or plan to run from encounters that are human, Anatomy class is not going to have any use for you. Hospital Staff is another side of the offensive perk packs that provides more support than damage. If you're going to receive any kind of damage, you might as well be receiving experience with Fast Learner. This is especially rewarding for players who like slugging it out with enemies without bracing, but you have to know what hits you can take. Essentially, you're trading resources. After all, you still complete a run successfully with 1 stamina, 1 reason, and 99% doom. If that means you can be level 5 at the end of it all the better. Of course, if you plan to run a lot or get throttled by hard enemies or bosses, you can't benefit from experience when you don't survive. This also gets a bit worse on medical history backstory, where you might be less inclined to get hit a lot in fear of random injuries. Trust me, a badly bleeding injury while stuck in a forest mystery is not a fun time. I suppose it's a good thing then that this perk pack has first aid. 2 reason recovery is pretty good for what you can do. If you're going to be fighting, receiving damage with experience, you might as well get a heal on top of it. To put this in perspective, the average rate of doom per point of stamina or reason recovered is about 1 doom to 1.5. Minus funds if you visit a shop. So recovering 2 reason is pretty big, especially with the lower max reason pool on Harbinger. The downside is any stamina or doom intensive run, along with any non-combative strat. You must defeat an enemy to get the reason, so if you're less than prepared, you end up running and miss out on 2 reason, which is better than dying. But yeah, your hope is to set up a strat that's ready against most enemies so you lose less resources while recovering 2 reason. With Fast Learner, you can level up just a bit faster to maybe reach that point, so these 2 perks do have an indirect synergy. Horror Rider contains spikes in efficiency located at the end of every mystery. Funds are the lower stable reward, and My Weird Collection is the RNG. Nonetheless, this perk pack is useful for the average player. Maybe not the best, but definitely usable at minimum. Signed Contract is going to net you 4 funds throughout the run. Unfortunately, you'd likely want to spend that last fund in town on the 5th mystery, but this might change after the end of the game is reworked. In any case, the funds you get will add on to the resources you have available. Late game cigarettes, Doom plus funds for healing, an auxiliary C-slot item. Even that small help for a clutch monument use late game gives Signed Contract a lot of use. On the other hand, if you're getting pickpocketed on Ill-Fated, if you can't visit many shops late game, or you just don't use many funds in general, then yeah, this isn't as useful. We'll have to pay more attention to see if there's anything valuable to spend funds on in the future. If there is, Signed Contract will get better. The perk My Weird Collection will help out on the item front as well. You can sell anything you won't be using, but a few of the items also have very good uses in general. From equipment to doom decreases, you might get something that'll save your run. RNG aside, you can add the funds gained from selling these random items to the signed contract gains, or even discard items for the few mystery subquests that we have. There are other uses for the items you'll be getting. Of course, if you're hurting or you die Mystery 2 or you can't get set up with these perks, you won't see any benefit at all. You could also be put in a situation where you can't use the random item gained by My Weird Collection and have no choice but to sell or store the item. And again, if you don't use a lot of funds for whatever reason, the funds you get from selling items doesn't help either. With better occult tag items, My Weird Collection will get better. If not, then any item that's not as great is going to be added to the pool of items where you have to try to draw the good items over all of the bad items. Smooth Talker is a perk pack that appeals more to situational strategies with some general use. The perk Improvise is certainly for players who like using a throw-intensive strat. But even if you don't use a throw strat, do keep in mind that the items you pick up, a lot of them can be thrown for damage. These are much appreciated +2 damage modifiers with the help of Improvise, which, keep in mind, most damage increases are only by +1. Tack on a random passive encounter where you can improvise freely, and you've got 50+ points of damage overall between the inventory and the storage. That's up to 20 points of damage ready to prank the scissor lady when she comes through that classroom door. Really, throwing items can save your life. Of course, you're not always going to grind for items to throw on purpose. Although it's not a rare occurrence, you may not pick up more than a few items to throw on a run as well. So while Improvise has this situational general use, it is more on the situational side than a it'll happen commonly category. I'm not saying you won't have a few items to throw in a lot of your runs. I mean, if you're carrying a weapon, it can be thrown. I'm just saying that there will be times when you have a weapon in your hand, and that'll be all. And, unfortunately, throwing items does not get a damage increase in it though too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fame also falls into the strat-dependent and situation-dependent type. You need allies for this to work. You actually break some accuracy thresholds if you recruit Kana only in a run, which does wonders for your damage mitigation. If you like school surfing for students or you get events where allies are available, even more so. 4% per ally additive to itself. Obviously, this perk gets nerfed near the abyss if you're on 7th curse background. At least you can make things work with a hermit and 2 dogs. Still, it's not great. If you like this video and want to support me, please subscribe if you want to help me long term. For the shorter term and more directly, I do have a Patreon where you can support me. I'm still continuing to think about how World of Horror will evolve as it continues in its pre-release state, but I won't take up more of your time. Thank you for watching.